So, okay, so we can't. Okay. Still waiting on the, all right. I think we are live. Oh my God. Yay! I am so excited. So welcome everyone. If you would do us a kindness and just type in your name and where you're from, that would be great. And if you want to type in a question that you want to make sure that we answer today, please go ahead and do that. But we'd like to know who's joining us for however long you can join us. We're going to be on for about 30 minutes of content and Susanna and I bantering back and forth. And then we'll take some questions and then we'll wrap it up and let you go back to your day. So, hey, to my folks on the West Coast, Susanna is out there in the California area soaking up some sun rays and some warm weather. So she got her coffee. And for the rest of us in different parts, we're either got coffee or we have got our lunches. So whatever it is, thank you. I see Sabra's chiming in from Ohio. She said, go Bucks. Rachel is in the OC, baby. All right.
Hi, Rachel.
All right. Thank you. Some other people out there, they haven't chimed in yet, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am so incredibly excited to do this today. Janet my auntie is joining from Los Angeles. I shouldn't say that. That's Janice Jones is joining us from Los Angeles. Yay, go Janice. Jennifer from Ohio, thank you so much. So I am excited to have Susanna Renderly here with me today. I'll tell you how this whole thing got started. I was talking to a colleague of mine. Many of you know Sanaa Rasul, and she's like, when you going live? When you going live? And I said, girl, I don't do live. I do recorded, I'm Memorex, baby. And she was like, no, you need to go live. And so she taught over a couple of months. She actually talked me into it. And I said, if I do it, I just want to have some real people. This cannot be real scripted. We can't, I want experts, people who are not afraid who've been in the C-suite, who work with C-suite leaders, who know what it's like to be an executive, because I think we sometimes glamorize being at the most senior ranks in an organization, from senior to senior vice president to C-suite to board members. And there's nothing glamorous about it. There's real work. That's why people get paid what they get paid. And so what I wanted to do was just have some real conversation, some real talk with some real leaders. And so Susanna is like, we were on had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. And I said, girl, you have got to be my first guest. And she said, well, if we do, then we have to talk about this, and so that's our subject for today, has some cuss words in it. And let me explain something to y'all. When I put that out there, I had somebody say, oh, Pam, you can't put a cuss word out there. You're a person of faith. That's not going to look good for your brand. And I said, well, there are a lot of people of faith who've been where I've been, who see what I see today. And that little 4-letter word is nothing. I mean, it is nothing compared to the other kinds of things that we have been exposed to and we have seen. So if that little 4-letter cuss word offended you, you're not ready. Plain and simple. You're not ready. Stay where you are and live in that little box. Because if that bothered you, then you're not ready for the next level, because you're going to be exposed to things. You're going to hear things come out of people's mouths. You're going to see an experience. You're going to have the kinds of experiences that'll make your jaw drop. And then you have to decide what you're going to do with that. And so I invited Susanna because I know that she knows about that. Susanna is a writer, a wisdom coach, a wellness warrior. She's a workplace wizard. And this woman has spent over 30 years in the game. I mean, she's done some phenomenal things. She's worked in all kinds of sectors across the United States. She's a certified professional coach. And two different organizations. She's twice credentialed by the International Coach Federation. She has written lots of things. She's written for Workforce Magazine, the Huffington Post, y'all. And she has been a TEDx speaker. So, we're in for a treat. She is funny. She is so smart. And I'm only inviting people where I need to have a pen and a pad in front of me to have a conversation, because you're going to learn some new things when you talk to Susanna. So with that, she's also a former principal at I'm sorry, former principal consultant at Corn Ferry. So with that, let me welcome Susanna. Susanna, welcome. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people. Thank you so much, Pam, for having me on. You know, you and I have had some really meaty, juicy, honest conversations in person, offline, and I'm just so thrilled and honored to be your guest on this debut episode of Real Talk, hashtag Real Talk, because that's
hashtag Real Talk, y'all.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we wanted to talk about, what I wanted to talk about was, leadership, integrity, and intention in this new normal. So we have been forced into, people are screaming to get out of the box. I get that. Into this new way of living, this new way of being. And that takes a lot out of us. It's forced us to have to shift, to make important pivots. And I'm just curious when you think about this, and what's the title of today? What was you coined this title? So I'm gonna throw it back at you. What's the title of the day? What does that mean?
Stop putting glitter on shit. And this is not NPR, so right. I can say it won't be bleeped. And I'll give you the. Should I give you the origin story?
Please, give me the origin. Yes.
Yeah. So, my sister is my best friend and a stellar professional and amazing human in her own right. We'd be best friends, I think, even if we weren't related. And I was ranting at her. We have these really smart, like real rants, like conversations I've had with you. And I was like, I feel like my entire job is basically putting glitter on shit. And she stopped. She goes, I think you're right. And you're also not a glitter girl.
No.
We started unpacking. What did I mean by that? Mm-hmm. What I meant by that, Pam, was that I came to the realization, kind of had the realization, but it got clearer and clearer that basically that's all I did.
Yeah.
That and what do I mean? So putting glitter on shit is just sort of a cheeky way of saying making pretty something that is toxic and rotten.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I thought about it, it applies to so many things beyond the workplace, just our political system, for example, our technology. Do we really need another app to help us not use our phones?
Ooh.
Do we need an app to help us go to sleep? Put the phone down, put the phone in the other room, right? The phone's the problem. You don't need another app.
You don't.
When it comes to the workplace, it's things like being called in. So my first career, as you know, is in diversity, equity, and inclusion, interculturalism. And really, when it came down to it, it was like I was being called to go into these rooms and to share content and share concepts with folks that they didn't need. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Because either they were already doing it better than me and my colleagues, or what they needed was to figure out, Susanna, how do I have this conversation with folks I'm about to lay off?
Right.
How do I create space in my day to just breathe?
Yep.
We've created a world in the workplace where we're trying to get more out of folks and giving them less.
Yeah. And more, and we're squeezing in even more because we're laying people off. We're furloughing people, that could turn into a layoff, but we're squeezing more out of people. And what people often forget is that's a lot of pressure on leaders. It might look like we're sleeping well at night, but really you're not, because that you're affecting someone's life. And there's two conversations, as you said. There is the real conversation that happens behind closed doors about who gets to stay and who has to go. And then there's a conversation, and that's a painful conversation to have, right? And then there's the conversation, the face you have to put on for the public, for the audience, for your employees, that says, this is, it's painful. This is a decision that I've made. You can't blame anyone. Real leaders take responsibility. They're not blaming, but they're putting, glitter on it. And they're saying stuff like, I had to make a tough decision, when really that decision might not have been theirs in the first place. And then some of it is, how often or how much can we be really honest with employees and say, you did this to yourself? Because if you've been performing the entire time, we might not be having this conversation about letting you go, because we don't let go of real good people. Those are not the first ones. They're the last to get cut. Yeah. And so we're having to have these real conversations behind closed doors, and they're not very pretty, but we have to have the pretty and the dressed up conversation with employees, and that can be extremely challenging.
Yeah, and people are hungry for real talk. We see that on the national level. We see that, there's research behind it. And of course, I've been a leader myself in an organization. I recognize that there's a fine line you have to walk.
Yep.
But people are hungry for that. And it goes beyond the communication. It goes systemically. So for example, we get caught up as leaders around, what do we name stuff? What do we name this building? What do we name this process? What do we name this? But the thing itself is problematic.
Yep.
Let's spend, $2 million on a training program to help us create a more speak up culture or more psychological safety. But why do people not feel safe in our company in the first place?
Right.
What is, we need to bring in training to do diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, how is inequity and how is lack of inclusiveness baked into our system? Or why would we want to include people into something that's already not working? Why would someone want to come in to something that's already broken? Like, we're not asking these systemic questions.
Right.
We shift the deadlines, but is this really urgent? Why?
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you that because, see, do you think that do you think we need DE&I training right now, like on the spot? Do you think that now, I don't want to say that we're beyond that, but what's the value there? Because a lot of things have been abandoned. Usually DE&I is the first on the cutting block, but what are your thoughts around that?
Oh, we just went there, didn't we? So, full disclosure to y'all that are listening, this is the thought process that I'm still teasing out. And that's one of the articles I'm going to be publishing in the next couple months. But here's my thinking today. Yes and no. So I know that sounds not real talk, but here's what I mean by that. First of all, that's not the number one thing people need right now.
Okay.
The number one thing people need right now, leaders in particular, is how are you doing? What do you need? How do we create more spaciousness, more time? How do we reduce the workload? People are working twice as hard and getting paid the same that they were paid in the 80s. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. Number two, I think right now, and again, this is a career I've been doing for 25, 30 years. So this is where I'm coming from. We need more unity and commonality right now. Mm-hmm. There's too much divisiveness. There's too much what makes us different. We need to have both. It's a both and conversation. We're similar and different. We need to move, I think, a little bit closer to the commonality and unity. Let's get real. We are an empire in decline.
Yeah.
It's showing up in our economic system, in our education system, our political system, our healthcare system. Mm-hmm. Look at what we're going through right now. People are scared. People feel something's wrong. We need to figure out what brings us together. A lot of D&I work is putting glitter on shit.
Yeah. So how would you, so you made some really, I think, really great points about real talk. And then you talked about honesty. And then you talked about, the importance of just really, I think, being authentic as a leader and just, putting it out there. Now, I will tell you, I believe that is the broadest appeal that Donald Trump has. I think that his appeal is to the average person who's tired of people putting glitter on it, right? And they want someone that's going to tell it like it is, and sock it to the institution, to the man, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's been in it, he's been socking it, but he's also benefiting from the sock. But we're gonna leave that alone for now. But so he's that real talk kind of person.
Whether that's true or not, that's the
not right. Yeah. So talk. If you were to advise him and his cabinet in this age, how would you advise him and other leaders how to adjust their conversation to be what we need in this time?
Well, when I think of leadership, integrity, and intention, I think I would direct my comments to someplace other than the current cabinet. But if we think about leaders that are dedicated to those values, then I would say, first of all, you already have what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Stop paying consultants. Listen to
Mm.
your people. All we do as consultants is go in and listen to your people and tell you what they're already saying. Second, stop tolerating bad behavior. When
Oh.
people are not behaving in a way that is supporting the values of the organization, it's an organization. You're here to meet a goal. Not meeting the goal, recalibrate, recover, or remove.
Wow.
Stop paying for trainings, do your job. And this is another reason that I think D&I is not the number one thing that people need right now, is that, first of all, most of the most equitable people and leaders I've met are not D&I professionals. They're
Wow.
y'all. They're
Wow.
you that are in the trenches making the hard decisions and doing doing this every day. D&I is really a both and. Effective leadership is inclusive leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of y'all are already doing it. And finally, the last thing I'll say is, what we really need now is leadership. We need art. We need healing. We need spaciousness. We need time, because that, from a brain science perspective and from a body full healing perspective, is what feeds the imagination that we need to solve these real problems. One of the things that a lot of us have known for a long time, but the pandemic has made really clear, Pam, is that most of us are non-essential workers.
Mm.
So then what are we doing?
Right. And I hate that non-essential stuff anyway, but yeah.
Right. How are we contributing something that is meaningful, that is purposeful, that really has added value over time? This is a fundamental conversation that's about more than just how do we package this message. So that would be my message to leaders is, a lot of you already have what you need. Stop the madness, create an island of sanity wherever you are, an oasis, listen to your people, put the money and the resources where it needs to go.
Absolutely. And Sana typed in, she said, bad behavior toleration is the most pervasive cancer in any organization.
Yep.
And now, we're in this sort of virtual world and we're trying to come back out. And I'd love to hear other thoughts. What questions do you have? What are your thoughts around, this topic? And what are your thoughts? What are your comments? What are your questions? Join in the conversation with us. But what I think is so important is that we hold people accountable. You cannot hide as much as we think we can virtually. You can't hide. You're either doing the work or you're not. And leaders have to learn how to do a better job and a more effective job at holding people accountable. But here's what I'm finding is more and more didn't know what people were really doing in the first place, because we relied on eyesight.
Yes. And can I say something about that?
Yeah.
I just read an article yesterday about all of these new apps and thingies that you add to your tool, systems that they're adding to folks' computers in order to track productivity at work, that basically are cameras or track keystrokes or track what someone is doing. And of course, a lot of people are pushing back and it's creating morale to go down. That's another example of glitter on shit. If you can't trust your people, what is it? How do we measure productivity? Is productivity having a butt in a chair? Is productivity doing a thing? Or is productivity actually adding value? Millennials were the first to start to shift the conversation. It's like, I don't need to be in a place or in a chair or even do my work at a particular time. What is it that you want me accomplish? What is it that you want me to accomplish? With what level of quality and by then? And let me dictate the how.
Yeah. As long as I'm getting it done. I mean, when I worked from home, before I left, and now I have to work from home, but before I started my own consultancy, my own business, working from home, it was hustle, and I might not be physically there during the regular business hours because my work time was, doing some things during the business hours in those meetings. But I was, round the clock. I was late night, early morning. And so I might take a break in the middle of the day to escape some of the madness and then hop back on, respond to those emails. But, how I do the work, people want control over where they do the work, how they get to do the work, who they get to work with. Just give me the tools and resources, throw me the football. I know how to make a touchdown. The problem is the leaders want to hold the football, tell you where to run, how fast to go. Oh, go over here, toss it to this person. Can I make some decisions about how I get this work done? It makes no sense. So I think that we've got to step back as leaders, and like you said, allow people to get the stuff done. Our job is to hold people accountable, give them the work, tell them what you're going to measure, how you're going to measure it, and let them run with that football. Jennifer said HR has become essential now that they realize our value, and HR leaders better be delivering on some value. So it's more than just being there and waiting. And it's like Jennifer is saying, and I know Jennifer, she's a value add person. So you're not going to have her on your team and she's not going to deliver. Not all HR people are made like that. And so organizations are going to be looking to HR leaders and other leaders to have some answers, and something beyond an app. Thank you very much. Can we just have regular old conversations with people, but have real conversation? Talk to people about what's happening, what's not happening, the forecast. And if you don't know, say you don't know. Stop glittering it up. And because people can read through that stuff. And on the other side of this, you're going to lose them. Okay, stop talking, Pam. Susanna, let's turn it back over to you. I don't see any other questions, but please type in your questions and your thoughts about this.
Yeah, and thank you, Sana, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah.
Sana, for your comments. Yeah, I mean, and I think also, Pam, that something else that is an invitation is, leadership, intention, and integrity is also about the big picture. Mm-hmm. How can it be a both and conversation, not an either or? I've been in so many meetings where the single focus is on the financials.
Yeah. Yes.
That's not that the financials aren't important, especially the higher up you go, the financials, but does it have to be in the hour-long executive meeting? Does it have to be a half hour, 45 minutes about the financials and 15 minutes for everything else? Yeah. Can the financials be 15, 20 minutes and the others be measures of what is our employee engagement? How do we know? What is the quality that we're providing? Is it just quantity or is there quality there? How are people feeling today? What are people needing that they're not getting from us? How are we all getting along in this room? Exactly. I mean, so much of the work you and I do is with the executive team that's a hot mess. It's like, when was the last time y'all just kind of sat and had a conversation about how you were doing and airing, whatever you need to air? And a lot of times the leaders already have the skill set. Yep. They're not putting a priority on creating the time and the space to have those conversations. And also, how can we as leaders be a part of the solution beyond the organization? Yeah. How is my organization contributing to the problem or creating solutions?
Yes. So, and this isn't that part of, I know that you and I both coach a lot of leaders just on having the conversation. Do you find that, well, let me ask you, what do you find is the real fear behind having that kind of conversation, going beyond the financials and talking about the people and the engagement? What's really going on there?
This face is me thinking. Do it, scroll, introvert moment. Uh-huh. What gets in the way of having that conversation? So what's coming to me are two things, Pam. Mm-hmm. Number one, I think lack of confidence or lack of skill. Sometimes it might be actual lack of skill. Other times it's lack of confidence and skill. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of times that's because they haven't practiced it. Everyone's going to be nervous about doing something they feel incompetent in, and particularly adults. Our identities are based on the sense of ourselves being intelligent, well-intended people. So that fear of vulnerability, that fear of making a mistake, that fear based in reality of not having practiced. Mm-hmm. I think the second thing is that is not as highly valued as other things.
Yeah.
This whole emotion, thank goodness for Daniel Goleman and his work in emotional intelligence. He just kind of normalized with science what we already know to be true, which is that our bodies don't stop at our necks. Mm. And a lot of my work in somatics and in body focused coaching and resilience and stress management is all about the knowledge that we have now that chronic stress, and acute trauma don't live in our brain as much as they do in our bodies outside of our brain. Our bodies do behaviors from those places that our minds and our emotions aren't always aware of. So the full human, can we create a more humane workplace? Can we create a workplace? You know, one of the core values of diversity, equity, and inclusion is allowing people to bring their full selves to work. Now, I don't know if the full self is the goal. Like, I don't know if I need to show up in my PJ. Right. There's some days, you know, maybe that's a discussion about where the line is, but I think the intent is well put in that we are full human beings. I think one of the beauties of the pandemic too is it's allowed us to bring a certain level of humanity to our work that was also seen as not executive presence or not professional, in that here's my house, here are my kids. I was on meetings recently with a gentleman who, it was also worth noting, he was the only man of color in the meeting.
Wow.
And he had his 2 babies on his lap during this meeting.
Wow.
And I was just like, what a way to be a leader, to show integrity, to show vulnerability, to show full personhood. I personally believe that that is a positive shift in our culture and our work culture, where we're more permitted to be humans.
Yep. Absolutely. And if if you think about it, the organizations that allow that to happen are way more successful. But I think that there is a fear of backlash, like I don't want them to know too much about me. We need to draw a line. And what we're finding is, and I love what Janice said, she said, that what she's learned about the virtual world is that you get to see the real deal. In office, you can put on a false face, which is counterintuitive, because you would think in the office, you can't hide anything, but we're used to that. I can put on, for hundreds of years, we've been able to fool people. And now we're at home. I can't hide the kids screaming and running in the background. I can't hide the dog barking or the fact that my husband likes to mow the lawn in the middle of the day. And I've got meetings going. I can't hide that, So I got to be able to adjust and honestly just be real. So if finance is on the right-hand side of the CEO, then HR and your people stuff has to be on the left, because you don't have the people on the left. I should put my hands in so y'all can see them, right? So if you don't have the people on the left, you can't have the money on the right. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to realize that. Sanaa writes, leaders must communicate authentically by acknowledging what they do well and what they don't do well, because our employees already know, but they are wanting for you to acknowledge it and then do something about it. Amen to that, sister.
Yes.
It's called being vulnerable, being real, snap it up. We're so afraid that people are going to, judge. They already judging you. They already talking about you. So, just be real, be your real, authentic self. And in that, care, genuinely and authentically care about people. And as Sherry said, what is valued is practiced and rewarded, and people will appreciate it. And I think part of the reward that leaders will get, because there is a fair amount of what we have to kind of still, maintain from an executive presence perspective. You don't have to put it all out, but there's a level and a degree of vulnerability that is important for leaders, especially during now. But yeah, go ahead.
You sparked something for me, Pam. Couple things. Number one, I just want to put some empathy. I mean, one of the things we know is that as leaders rise up in organizations, the more isolated they become.
The thinner the air gets up there. Go ahead.
Right. That's because of the function of power. People are less likely to be frank with you the higher up you go. So let's just be real about that too, and be empathetic about the limitations that causes. And also, the higher up you go, the more visible your mistakes, and the higher the stakes in many cases. So I can hear some people in my past saying right now, well, Susanna, that sounds all great, but in practice, it's really hard. Yes, it's really hard. There are mistakes that are going to be made. And I would say, and using myself as an example, this was my choice. And I think every leader needs to make a choice for themselves. It's part of the integrity and intentionality. I erred more on the side of vulnerability than not.
Yeah.
And did I make a couple mistakes? Yes. And did I also create an environment where then people could be more themselves and we're less caught up in all that other emotional stuff and we're able to focus on the task at hand? The second thing I want to say is that, we're not all equal when it comes to our ability to be vulnerable in the workplace and the stakes. So if we're women, if we're people of color, if we have a visible disability, if we're LGBTQ, being vulnerable is a different scenario than someone who might be in a male or a white or a middle-aged, body. So taking that also with a grain of salt in terms of always thinking to yourself around what are the pros and cons, what are the stakes here, I think is important in terms of vulnerability. But being more human, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi and I love all the shows. Like I'm deep into Westworld season 3 right now. And there's a real theme in a lot of our art right now around robots and androids and artificial intelligence. And let's be real, I think it's because we know that's coming. And so how can we be what no machine can be? How can we be human? And all of that, and not just the computer here, how can we be fully embodied in the work that we're doing, fully present and fully mindful of our impact, not just on the person in front of us, Pam, but more broadly in our organization?
Yes. And let me ask you this, because I think Sherry writes a really good point. She says, this is why coaching is such a valuable tool for leaders, a safe and trusted place to work through and, how to be vulnerable and how to hold up to scrutiny. I mean, when I was promoted into the C-suite, woo, Lord, you talk about your neck on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my saving grace was the relationships that I had made throughout every level of the organization. I was getting information from them that I'm like, how did you know? How did y'all know this information? And there were, and one of the things that I learned in all of this is that people do business with, they build relationships with, they give information to people they know, they like, and they trust. That is my mantra. So being a consultant, that having that experience and then moving that into consultancy and coaching for executives meant, we had to I focus on teaching them how to be relatable, how to hold up to scrutiny, because people are going to talk about you, whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And that's where a lot of us fall apart because we want to be so liked and loved and, and beloved. But not everybody's going to like you and not everybody's going to love you. But the people that do know you, like you, and trust you, those are the people that you're going to be able to rely on to support you during really tough and challenging times. Because it's not about what in these days. It's about who you know, and of the people who know you, how many of them like you and trust you to do and to be what you're supposed to be. Thoughts?
Yeah. And I learned I love that you talked about trust, Pam. I learned a really hard lesson about trust earlier in my career that I'm still learning. For me, integrity, it's one of our topics today. Integrity has long been my highest personal and professional value. And while I'm not perfect, that is one thing I've gotten feedback that I'm known for. And I used to think of it in terms of, so I got some feedback maybe 15 years ago that I wasn't entirely trusted, that people didn't entirely trust me. And that really hurt my heart because I was like, what do they mean? Like, I'm super honest. I always keep my word. When I say I'm going to do something or be there, I always do that. But it took me a little while to tease out what that feedback meant. And it wasn't about just keeping your word. It was about, there was something about the way that I speak and dress and do things that gave an air of perfectionism.
Wow.
Because I was so scared to fail or make a mistake because of my own early childhood baggage.
Yeah.
That it made people feel just a little bit more tense around me.
Really?
It wasn't so much about, I didn't keep my word and I treated people like crap. It was about that, I was maybe putting some glitter on my own shit.
You were buttoned up and ready.
Yeah,
booted and booted.
I was wrapped, I'm a young female, I'm this and that. And these are all identities I still had to manage in the workplace. But it was like, oh my God, it was like me hiding that stuff is actually getting in the way of what I'm trying to do. That's something that happens to me all the time as a writer, Pam. Like you and I follow each other on social media, you read my, and it's still to this day, I will write articles that I'm like, oh God, here it comes. I just outed myself as having mental health issues. I just outed myself as doing, you know, like, or I'll write something and I'm like, this is super self-indulgent. Like, this is just me talking about the thing that I went through. Who gives a shit about my, like, you know, little narrow world? And it never ceases to amaze me, Pam, the response that that type of article often gets, because people will be like, oh my God, me too. Or they may not connect with the exact experience, but they connect with the feelings and the humanity of it. And it never ceases to amaze me that those little risks create the connection, which is the lubricant, the social lubrication and the glue you were just talking about. Like, how can you know, like, and trust me if I don't let you see me?
Did you just say social lubrication? See, I told y'all. What are you writing? What are you up to now? What are you doing? So how do we stay connected? What books do you tell us? What are you doing? Because I want people to know why I love you so much beyond them connecting with you. She is hilariously funny. You know, I don't know if it's okay to tell people to follow you on Facebook, but yeah, follow her on Facebook, follow her on YouTube. She's, just a dynamo. Oh shoot, did I lose you, Susanna? Uh-oh, her screen froze. Don't you just love technology? But isn't it nice that her screen froze the way that it did? Because it's on a lovely, lovely picture. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you how to reach her, and hopefully her screen will unfreeze. You can reach Susanna at wordswisdomwellness.com. Susanna, wordswisdomwellness.com. You can also reach her by going to her website. There she is, wordswisdomwellness.com. So Susanna at wordswisdomwellness.com, and her website, wordswisdomwellness.com. I'm going to type it in. But Susanna, you froze up, and it was a lovely portrait of you when you froze, by the way. I would freeze with my mouth open, but not you. So yes, what final thoughts or comments as people want to, add their questions? I want to take some time and do that. I want to say thank you again for joining me today, but I want you to give me your thoughts. What are you doing? What do people need to know about you?
Oh, what am I doing? That's an ongoing conversation. And yes, and it's funny that you said that, because that's one of the questions that I'm asking leaders all the time. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What does success look like? Where are you out of alignment, and what are you going to do about it? So these are questions I'm asking myself right now. I'm in a transition myself, but what I'm really stepping into are my, as I mentioned earlier, the world needs all of us. Everybody has a piece to provide. My piece at this point, I believe, where my passion, my competence intersect with what the world needs, is around healing and art. I think healing and creativity is a lot of what most of us need more of right now. We don't need more numbers. We don't need more suits. We don't need more yada, yada, yada. We need space. We need breath. We need healing. We need wellness. We need art and creativity, because that will fuel the imagination and the wholeness that will allow us to be more of who we are and to create a world that works better for more of us, because that's still my core value. Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is I'm writing. I'm still writing articles for Workforce. I'm writing on Medium. I'm writing in my own spaces. I'm launching into more creative work, but more of a sassy tone, experimenting with videos, as you heard, that are not necessarily related to the workplace. But if the word stupid bullshit gets you excited, I do videos about examples of that in our world that bring a lightness and humor to our daily life, which I think is important. I'm also doing a lot of work around stress management and resilience. So helping people with the cutting edge science about how, as I mentioned earlier, acute trauma, which most of us have experienced, as well as chronic long-term stress. Can I get an amen?
Amen on that.
Lives in our bodies that has even a more detrimental effect. And hello, coronavirus. A lot of us are dealing with that right now. really working on body focused solutions on individual and group levels to help people move that through. I myself have had my life transformed in the last year, practicing some of the tools in the resilience toolkit. So as you mentioned, my identities now are I'm a writer, I'm a wellness warrior, I'm a workplace wizard. So I also help leaders and organizations either grow from good to great or solve an existing pressing problem without putting glitter on shit. Let's get the shit out. Let's move the shit. Clean it out.
Are you going to be selling shovels that people can buy to get some of that out?
Some shovels. Yes. And also a wisdom coach. So I help connect my clients with their clarity, confidence, direction, and purpose, connecting with their own internal deep wisdom as well as abundant external wisdom, whether it's in their spiritual path, in other humans, in science, or even the natural world. So I'm up to all kinds of adventures, Miss Pam.
You got it. And look, Sanaa said she ready to buy a shovel. I know. Look, the groups and the audiences we have, shoot, you better bring it, So, but give us one final point. What's one thing that we need to take away as a result of today and what you want people to know?
At the risk of sounding redundant, I'll just hammer home, I think, 2 points. Number one is, and you know what I just said about what are you doing is funny, but it's the simplicity, it's the depth and the simplicity in these questions that I think we love as coaches, but that are so generative. I have a good friend of mine back. I'm an LA native, but I was gone for 21 years. I spent 14 of those in New Mexico, which I think where I was living when we met.
Yeah.
But, we used to have lunch all the time. He's the leader of a LGBTQ organization there. And we used to have lunch and sort of talk about our work and our life and what was going on. And one of the things that became a thing between us is I would say, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing, like each other, but also as a question that the people we're working with need to be asking themselves, like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Like, really, what are you doing? And not what do you think you're doing or what do you want to be doing, but what are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Okay? And where is that out of alignment with what you're really about and what you want to be doing?
Yeah.
And when you're out of alignment, how can you close the gap? And that's where coaching can be invaluable, as you know, Pam, in helping people really discern and get clear.
Yeah.
That's the first point, which has subpoints. And then the last point again is most of y'all already have what you need. Mm-hmm. Listen to your people. Stop paying consultants. Listen to the people that are already there. You've got internal experts that know your culture, your company, what you need better than anyone external. A lot of us externals, that's what we do. We go in and we say, listen to your internal people, and stop paying for trainings. Training only solves the problem if lack of knowledge and skills is the issue.
Oh,
most organizations, lack of knowledge and skills is not the issue. It's that the culture doesn't support doing those behaviors. It's that people are not held accountable, rigorously praised, or held accountable for not doing the behaviors, or it's a leadership issue. So many times I come in and it's like, Susanna, can you teach us to communicate? Can you do diversity inclusion? It's like, I'm sorry, C-suite, but y'all are the problem. So, really focus on, don't make pretty something that is rotten and toxic. Find out what essentially deeply integrated into the system is not working and work on that. We don't have extra time or extra money anymore. So really use the resources that you have to create a difference that matters in a world that works better for more of us, not you.
And I will tell you that's a lot of where I love what you were saying. Many times I know a lot of the folks on here will agree is when people call us, I'm first to tell them you don't need me, to really train you to do anything. The real issue, and I can help you with this, is rolling up your sleeves and getting to a place of accountability, because you already know what to do. And if you don't, we can talk about that, but I want to see you actually do it. So when I'm coaching executives, especially, there has to be accountability. If there's no accountability person, I can't help you, because I know that once you and I finish and I take your money, that you're going to go back to the same behaviors that you were exhibiting before. So if this is just a checkbox, I'm not your coach. I'm not your consultant. You need somebody else. I want to see real change that impacts the organization more broadly. And that's where the real work is done. It's not in putting a Band-Aid on stuff. Those days are gone, because what we're finding, as Janice has said earlier, we're starting this remote work. We're starting to see what's really happening and what really hasn't been happening. So we want you to lead with intention, lead with clarity, lead with integrity and executive presence. I want to say thank you so much to Susanna for joining me today. I'm so excited about our conversation. We were like we were high-fiving and fist pumping and all of that stuff virtually. And we were so just like, we didn't know. So we're going to just go by the seat of our pants. And, we're just gonna do this because people need real talk, unscripted. Let's talk about what's really bothering people and what's happening. So thank you all for joining in and for staying attentive and engaging. We'll get better at this as I go along. But hey, the first one down, the other ones are all downhill from here. So I look forward to the next one. Is going to be phenomenal. I'm speaking with a finance expert in the industry, and I know that she's watching. So, in 2 weeks, join me back here, and we'll keep this conversation going. In the meantime, please check out Susanna, support her, call her for real talk, real conversations about leading with integrity and intention. Take the lipstick off the pig and all that other good stuff. So, Susanna, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.